Well, we're trying for 3 straight days higher here in the corn market. Where do we start the trade? Well, we've been higher here in the corn. We're up a half penny on the December at $4.90 1/4. Now we're pairing some of those gains. Notice December's been as high as $4.93, and now we're pulling back here. 506 on the March contract. It's down nearly a penny. And roll out to the July, 516 1/4. So if we were thinking all of the new crop contracts could go above $5 right now, December, not necessarily with an anchor on it, but definitely trying to run with its at least 1 foot in cement. Beans trying for their 3rd straight day higher. And we're pulling back from the highs, 1228.5 on the November. That's up 12.5, 12 higher still on that March contract as well. Wheat market, we've been mixed here. Yesterday, we were mixed in Chicago. We were higher in Kansas City. You see, we're mostly lower right now in Chicago with September, 670 1/4. It's down 4.5, but keep an eye. How often do I say this? July. That's next year's new crop, 711. It's a tick higher. We have hard red. Look at the July at 781 1/4. It's a penny lower. Again, what, about an 11-cent trade range there, 10.5-cent trade range or so. But keep an eye on July, because those decisions probably being made right now on whether or not to go ahead with wheat for the winter. The old crop, what's in the bin, nickel lower, 753 3/4. One more market. Cotton, 42 higher, 85.90. Our guest in studio, Chris Swift. Chris is with Swift Trading, and man, there are so many ways we could go here. You know, obviously the wheat market, I think that's kind of interesting. If we run that thing up to $8, I'm pretty sure we're going to have more acres of wheat in the ground come this winter.
Well, the incentive would be there, but whether or not we can get it in the ground with all the dryness is a problem. And that's what, for what it's worth, all these markets are moving higher. And I think a lot of it has to do with the moisture problem, and not so much here in the United States. The crop tour going on right now, probably going to show about average of what everything is. So there's not going to be anything stellar. And more likely than not, what I'm seeing out there is it's not U.S. problems. The U.S. could benefit greatly from European problems. It could benefit from Australian problems, and specifically South America if we begin to get into this super El Nino and dries things up even worse there. So it's not really the U.S. crop that I'm concerned about. It's everywhere else in the world and how much the U.S. crop may benefit from that demand.
Okay. Before we came in, we were talking about markets and how you just need volume in a market.
Oh, absolutely.
If you don't have the volume in the market, then, well, pork bellies, for example.
Right.
When we got to the end of the pork belly trading, you had one person doing all the buying and the selling. Mm-hmm. There was no activity, so you couldn't do anything.
Right. So yesterday, I listened to Tommy Grisafi and Scott Shelley talk about water. Water and fertilizer are the things we need the most. And so, although you can't do a whole lot about the water right now, we did look at fertilizer. And I had several clients to call and say, hey, look at those DAP futures, see what we can do with urea. And I found no volume in any of those. So I'm not real sure, barring a cash forward contract out there, where we can go to try to limit some of this risk that we're going to have to assume in fertilizer. And that's going to be a huge issue with the water. Right now, we always talk about the Ogallala Waterford down there and aquifer, and it's being dried. And with all the data centers now going to consume even more water, we got to perk up and pay attention to this, because before we know it, there's going to be a shortage of water in a lot of the crop areas simply because of how much we have to irrigate the number of acres.
And let's, again, you just served it up for me. There are water restrictions going on right now across, I don't know if it's into Kansas yet, but definitely in the Oklahoma Panhandle, Texas Panhandle, water restrictions because of how dry it's been.
And it's probably not going to get any better from what we see on the weather forecast anytime soon.
By the way, are there some livestock out there?
I believe there is. Maybe even a little higher today.
Well, maybe we should take a break, and then we'll come back and see if we can tie all this together with Chris Swift. This is Market Day Report. So we talk about cattle. We get a cattle on feed report that comes out Friday after the close, so will be Monday morning before we trade it. Are we expecting much out of that? And again, where are we going to find any more animals to have on feed at this point? Don't know if we'll find them, but anyway, we'll get the report from USDA on Friday. Right now, live cattle futures, and we're moving higher right now. We're up $1.35 front month at $225.90. Again, chasing the cash trade. Last week was $225 to $235. $220.20 on the October most active. It's up $1.42. On the feeder side, the most active September $335.10. It's up $215. Also watching October, up nearly $3 now at $328.25. Higher across the board here for the feeders. And then the hogs were pretty much lower across the board. The exception there, the May contract up 22 cents. But again, losses here from 62 to 75 cents. Chris Swift is with Swift Trading. We went into the break talking about how dry that southern high plains region is, and the drought obviously extends much further north there. But two things we have. We have wheat out through that area, and we also have cattle. How does all this work together? Pastures.
Pastures are the biggest thing, and they are really in dry current position right now. And hay. Certain areas are really almost double the price of hay right now per ton. The pastures, if they don't get the wheat pastures in there, we like to graze those through the wintertime. If they don't get those planted, it costs a lot of money to irrigate that wheat in order to get it up for just grazing. We've seen a lot of lack of cattle movement over the last 3 or 4 weeks. The heat has been oppressive to a lot of the animals, and nobody wants to get out there and move in that. Next couple of weeks is going to break just a little bit, and we think we're going to see a lot more volume of sales out there. Also, the basis has been very important to us, and that has come down considerably, narrowed considerably, because the cash markets have come down. Futures, yes, have come down, and from a technical standpoint, we broke new lows in the feeder cattle index. We broke new lows in the futures contracts, all from the previous contract highs on futures and from the historical high on cash. So technically, we're kind of back in resuming that downtrend. And with the closure of the one plant, I think we're going to reopen that Fort Morgan plant at some point in time. So just balancing out that, probably going to take a little bit of time, but nobody in the industry yet is starting to make money, and so I think we'll probably continue the path we are until some sector of the industry begins to see some kind of green.
How interesting is it that pie that we were eating 5-6 years ago, still the same size pie, if you will, it's just that back then the packers were eating about half of that pie, right, and now they're just getting a sliver of that. But what about the feeders? Have they seen their slice of the pie get really thin?
Yeah, and it's probably going to get a little bit thinner. Even with the Mexican cattle, supposedly going to come across starting August the 24th, it's still very thin out there, and we're probably not going to increase in expansion. Even though we think we're in expansion right now, it's going to take years to be able to do it. So unfortunately, that encourages more alternatives, whether that's imports from other countries, alternative meat proteins on there, or just keeping, unfortunately, that price really high to the consumer, because all we're doing right now is manipulating wholesale price through the slaughter. We're cutting the slaughter back, we're making less beef out there, and that keeps it elevated at the wholesale level and retail level, but yet we're not seeing that cattleman get a piece of that pie anymore.
Yeah, good way to describe that. Just because you're seeing that $7, $8, $9 ground beef at the grocery store, that's not trickling all the way back.
No, it's not.
Yeah. Great points. Chris Swift is with Swift Trading. Now you know why we love to have Chris in here on Tuesday.
At least what we do know, when we do go to the grocery store, that beef will be quality beef.
That's
I think that is the one thing that you got to celebrate your little wins at the end of the day, especially in today's market. So I appreciate both of you.